Okay, so I want to do a quick run through of how to use the render workspace. You're not going to need to know this for every single time, but as we start doing more involved stuffs, and obviously as these are meant to be modeled after real world objects or intended to be actual tangible, usable, interactable, sure, objects, I want to show you how to fully realize them. So let me hop back over to Fusion, all of these examples. There we go. All right, so doesn't matter which one you're working with. These are some of the other examples. Now, right now, I just have it in auto color mode. That is simply pressing hold shift and click and pressing in. So in or shift November. That is just toggling between your appearances and auto assign colors. Now, this one is two different ones because I have them on two different components. We're not really worrying about that right now. But shifting back to actual appearance mode, and the default setting is that kind of silver gray one. God, screen pop-ups are driving me insane. There. All right, so whichever one you're working with, we put some appearances in, all of that. You can apply appearances now or in the render workspace. It doesn't matter. One of the ones I was working with is this jar here, and I'll hide this for the moment, but I made a little platform to help me out. But what we're doing is on our standard thing, the design tab, this is where we're going to spend most of the time in this class, and this is where you're going to spend most of your time working with Fusion, unless you're doing other design works and such, or unless you're doing actual other stuff. But click that. You can see all the other different ones. We're not worried about generative design, all of that right now. We're going to use render. This just toggles the workspace, and you can see if you have appearances on there, there's already a pretty significant change in how it looks, and that's just it. This is changing from the kind of default setting to just giving you a close approximation of the appearance in the design workspace to fully realizing it. Now, I have a couple of examples I've already rendered, and I was playing with some of the different ones here. Let me expand the window so you actually get like more than a teeny tiny thumbnail. Zoom in, that would be awesome. Not supported by post, oh God, just trying to zoom. Anyway, so you can see a big difference between what it was and what it's showing now, showing us fully translucent glass. You can see I put a little bit of wood there just to give it a sense of place. I have some other versions that I tried, and this is just showing a fully rendered version. I actually have a couple of different ones using different using different lighting options. And you can see how this one has much higher light pinpoints, much brighter hot points, darker contrast. Not a lot of cast shadow because this is a translucent object. But you can always change that up. So where's the close? Can't close it. Well, that's only mostly frustrating. Oh, good Lord. Apparently, when you size it up, it hides the close button. Cool. Awesome. Great layering effect, Fusion. So all your tools are all still here. Nothing changes on that. You can still orbit. You can still zoom, all of that. But what it will change is the other options you can play with. So up in the upper left hand, you can see you bring up your appearance tool, press A, same thing in the keyboard, change stuff up that way. Over here, scene settings is where you start to actually put an environment around. You select here. Now you have some of your defaults. The brightness, if I change this up, it gets real intense. So do with that as you will. Position just allows you to actually change the lighting source. It's not changing where your object is, it's where the light source is. And you can see how the cast shadow really starts to change up a little bit. Like that, you have ground effects. These are all just different things you can play with. I am not expecting you to fully master any of this. These are absolutely just things you can play with. But one of the things I do want you to be aware of is we've been working with orthographic views. Remember, straight on, singular views. Even the perspective view is still an isometric view, not as your eye would see it, not as you would draw it in like 1, 2, or 3 point perspective in a drawing class. But you do have the option to play with your camera now to actually give it perspective or orthographic views. So depends on how you would like to see it. Perspective, you can see how much that changes from how the model is actually modeled versus how it would look through perspective drawing. Changes things pretty drastically. Other things you can play around with is the actual aspect ratio. So you saw how the viewport aspect ratio changed when I rendered those. Made it like a big long strip. You could change it up to like more like presentation mode. So now when I render it, it would actually have a correct or a more correct size, that sort. So play around with those. Obviously, you can set things as default, or you can restore all of the original settings. There you go. The other section, the other tab on this option is your environment settings. This is where you can change out like how bright the lights are, that sort, or you can put it in a field for some reason. Now, unfortunately, there's not a lot of location presets, but and of course you do have to download, so I don't know, we'll put it at the crossroads for whatever reason. These get applied the exact same way as the appearances, but instead of dropping it on an object, you drop it into the backdrop. Give it a moment to calculate. Hopefully, this is where you definitely made sure to save your projects, because stuff starts to happen here. Now, it should be showing, and I don't know why it's not right now. But let's play around. Oh, right. Not appearance. Not what I meant to hit. The reason it's not showing, you got to make sure on the settings part, background, the background is default standard color, or the environment you've just chosen. And as you zoom in and out, it's only moving the camera angle of the object in zoom. But when you orbit, it actually changes perspective. So I don't know if you need your jar floating in the middle of the road in Arizona, apparently. Sure, good place to leave a jar. But you're going to play around with this. You know, again, I'm just wanting you to experiment with this. As part of the assignment, I would like you to just render one image, play around with them as you like. So when you finish your model, try this out. Excuse me. Now you have some options over here. Excuse me. In the in-canvas render part, these are like your little sample settings. Over here, the far right, why teapot is the standard symbol, don't know, but for rendering, a teapot symbol is pretty cross-platform. I think it's even the same in like Photoshop and such. But before you get to that, test it out. In-canvas render. This will allow you to, it's going to make this like particle waves, stuff like that. But now it's going to give you a really good approximation of how the full render will look. See how much that's already changed from just before I even hit any of this? Now it's showing it's fully translucent. Now it's still giving me all these little particles. That's because it's just applying and calculating like light reflection, because it's translucent, what the background effect will have. And you can see it's taking, as the longer I have this little time bar, it's like it's playing a video. It's showing you how long it is taking to calculate all of this. The length of time will depend on the complexity of your model, the materials you've chosen, the background and lighting, and just how powerful your computer is. These desktops seem to be okay, but you can see how long it's taking to render something like this. My desktop at home, this took like 10 seconds, and this is almost a minute. You can pause at any point, like, yep, that's good enough. And if you change, it's going to redo everything. But again, this is simply for you to get this idea of what your object will really look like in space, in hand. There's some other settings, obviously the in-canvas settings, blah, blah, blah. I do realize I want to change up my scene settings to go back to my, oops, did not want to change the perspective there. I wanted to just change the aspect ratio to like presentation, just so it's a little bit cleaner or a little bit smaller. There you go. So that's going to give you a really good approximation. All right, when you think you like it, all good there. We're going to go to render. Now this is going to bring up some settings. I do not expect you to figure all of this stuff out, but couple of things. All of these image sizes, aspect ratio, you can change it here, now, all that. That's all fine. But the down here, the render width, cloud, local render, standard, final. Render width, cloud rendering uses the Autodesk servers, online server. So this is also really handy if you are online, but depends on how strong your connection is. That might mess about with things. Local render uses the computer itself. I have found it to be a little bit faster, and that also was my computer at home. So try this out. The render quality, that's your standard things. Is it draft quality? Spits it out real fast. It's not nearly as fine-tuned, but there we go. Now, what this little symbol is, this little diamond symbol, that is meaning it takes like tokens, online tokens. It takes 5 internets, or in this case, more. But use the standard setting. That is plenty rendered for what we're going to need. And then try it out. Hit render. Now I'm going to see, I don't know how long it's going to take. This automatically hid, but if you mouse over this newest render, it's going to give you an estimate of how long it takes. Estimated or submitted a few seconds ago. Remaining time 3 minutes. Cool. Like I said, this took me like 10 seconds on my home computer. So, oh, great. Now it's 4 minutes. Cool. This is like downloading an old. This is like when we used to download songs off of Napster. And it goes from 3 minutes to an hour to 4 hours to back down to 5 minutes. And yeah, that tracks. Anyway, buying myself a little bit of time here. Yeah, play around with this. The main thing is, I don't want you to feel like you have to have this is not a master class on this stuff. This is absolutely, I want you to just try it out because it changes your object from what you've been used to seeing, giving the materials a close approximation, right all the way up to a full idea of what the whole thing would look like in hand. Neat idea. Again, this is very much limited to what my computer is doing, and I also have multiple things open, like I'm currently recording on Zoom. A lot of those factors will come into play. But play around with it. I would like you to try it. If you run into an error, or I have had my computer freeze up doing this. So, like I said, and I will repeat it, save before you do this. Save before you render. Save before you even go into the render tab, just in case. I've had weird things happen. But save it, save your project before you do, then try out the render. Try it out, play around with it. It's just a neat way to see what the thing will look like, especially since a lot of you are using like, since we're playing with the appearances, a lot of you are doing things like glass or clear plastic, translucent plastic, or highly reflective surfaces. If you have in an environment, it will reflect the environment in, like if you're using like a chrome or highly polished metal surface, it's going to reflect the entire environment around with that. And that can work really well. Now, one quick thing, and I was hoping this would have been done rendering already. If you're not getting very good results because like this one, it is a clear object and I used this like gravel backdrop. It's just in the middle of the road. Do what I did before, do what I did on the other one. See if it's going to cause even more issue. What I did is I just extruded a box. It's only like 1 millimeter thick. And then I applied like a wood grain or wood pattern or something like that. It just gives it a slightly better environment to put your object on top of. Because if the background environments, sometimes they actually kind of take away a little bit. As in, you don't really get as much effect of, again, my jar in the middle of a road in the desert versus sitting on a countertop. There you go. That can all play into it. Yay, it finally finished rendering. So, different to there. And now, see how long it takes to open. God. Again, if it just bogs up your computer, don't worry about it. I really just want y'all to be able to play with this. Crud. I was hoping this would work fast. There we go. All right. So you can see how it's really captured the highlights and all that. versus like one of my ones in the, I think I was using like the photo booth version. See, the highlights aren't quite as strong, all that, and the reflections are just neutral. Whereas the one I just fully rendered, it's giving me reflections of not just the gravel road, but because it's a 360 image of a space, it's giving me reflections of like the sky above it, all of that. It's neat. Play around with it. You can certainly save, obviously, by the old download and save. It's downloading because it's rendered on, it's cloud storage, so you have to download it. Or if you just super don't like it, trash it. You're not losing anything. It's all online storage. So yeah, play around with it. Try your finished model. Try playing around with the render space. Remember that the in canvas render is the one that is a quick version, and then the full render is the full render. Definitely play around with the scene settings. If you don't like the background environment, you can switch back to solid color, and that's where you could plop in, like I did, this platform. And instead of the environment backgrounds, that's where you can use like these lighting options, which just changes exactly that, the actual lighting environment. Click and drag. You see how it just changes the shadows, that sort. Play around with it. Don't forget that you do have to download each one. If you're working on this classroom computer and then you try to do this at home, you will have to download it again onto your computer itself. It's actually putting it onto your computer, saving it there, but no different than the other appearances, and it's not like it's taking up a huge amount of space or anything. So play around with it, see what your object will really look like. Neato, and then I don't know if you feel like changing it, like, oh god, that is atrocious in hand. That's just no. Or hey, looks neat. It's up to you. Play around with it. It's a neat tool. That's pretty much it.